resmi untuk pasaran Malaysia. By the time korang menonton video ni, and sekarang aku yakin mesti korang curious apakah benda-benda baru yang best yang membuatkan nanti phone 3 ni masuk dalam segmen flagship, and of course apakah benda-benda yang kurang menarik, tidak lengkap ataupun tidak sempurna dekat phone ni. So jom aku tunjukkan. Okay geng, masa Nothing belum announce sebelum ni flagship pertama daripada mereka, aku waktu tu macam dang it, aku happy dan curious macam mana lah rupa flagship tu nanti, sebab akhirnya kita ada kompetitor baru dalam segmen flagship.
念の表低温調理人物万象よ巡れふんやっやっしと
Why? Apa pasal? Kenapa nak tinggal kata kau letak komposisi kamera kau macam ni? Berterak gol pun. Lepas tu dia tak kemas macam besar tu dia jadi macam kemo lah. Yang lain tau, bukanlah aku nak merendahkan ataupun nak mengatakan yang lensa kamera dia ni susunan dia tu buruk. But I'm just stating the fact, and aku yakin mesti ada sebahagian ataupun sebilangan.
光り輝くがいいお披露目だ連気可視食前に甘いものを目の下の人物限界に沈めふっやっはっ
yang tak kemas ni nampak gini, tak ada masalah. Tafadhol masykur. Namun walau bagaimanapun aku tetap dengan pilihan yang Nothing sebenarnya saya tu dekat belakang ni design dia tengah lain kan. Macam korang lihat ni, dia ada glyph metric dalam bentuk pixelated. Dia ada pelbagai functionality macam tunjuk bateri, notification and banyak lagi dengan bentuk ikon yang berbeza untuk setiap fungsi. Aku perasan satu benda di mana functionality glyph metric ni dia punya display agak sama, mirip dengan anime vision dekat ROG Phone 9 Pro. So far aku boleh cakap build quality dia memang flawless.
具現戦ふっさっ表層よ化身とな烈風星々よ静かに眠れやっと
sub-brand daripada Nothing, and dalam tu aku ada mention atau lebih tepat lagi aku puji prestasi kamera dekat phone ni. Walaupun kamera placement dia tu agak terabur, tapi kualiti gambar yang aku dapat agak amazing jugalah. So far Nothing Phone 3 ni memberikan aku hasil gambar yang clear, cantik, sharp, color dia pun accurate dan tak overexpose.
念の表像最高の一品よ低温調理世界を熱狂の渦に僕を立つ万象よ巡れはっふっふっ滅ふっ
sebab HDR dia tinggi, cahaya dia tinggi walaupun dekat tengah panas, and kerana Nothing Phone 3 ada video tak stabil dan tak terjaga. So far untuk kamera, aku bercakap dekat korang sejujurnya aku memang puas hati dengan kualiti dan juga hasil yang aku dapat, sama ada video ataupun gambar. But ada satu benda yang aku nak kena ingatkan kepada korang,
連気可視律令に従え目も舌も満足させてあげる人物限界に沈めはっはっ
Aku bercakap dengan korang sejujurnya speed yang digunakan oleh Nothing ni on par ataupun setara dengan Snapdragon 8. Pada awalnya aku ingatkan Nothing Phone 3 akan menggunakan chip Snapdragon 8 Elite sebab itu adalah CPU yang kebanyakan flagship 2025 guna. However, unfortunately Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 sahaja. Namun baru tak perlu risau sebab phone ni still power lagi untuk handle any games yang ada dekat luar sana, even AAA mobile games, and packed with more than enough juice untuk buat kerja harian macam Netflix, YouTube, mendengar lagu, tonton video and banyak lagi. Dan of course seperti biasa Nothing OS still sama macam sebelum ni, clean, minimalistic, and for those yang memang big fan ataupun prefer stock Android, memang sesuai lah untuk korang. But personally aku rasa semua tu dah jadi biasa, macam tak ada apa-apa maksud. Semasa Nothing Phone generasi awal dilancarkan sebelum ni, memang kita puji sebab
星と深夜無事今日の依頼星と深夜
perbezaan yang ketara. Namun walau bagaimanapun aku tetap puji yang mana Nothing OS ni memberikan korang sebagai support dan agak harga dia, iaitu 5 tahun software update dan juga 7 tahun security patch. Jadi pengguna sekarang pengguna masih lagi boleh menggunakan Nothing Phone 3 ni sekurang-kurangnya 5 tahun sebab phone tu masih lagi menerima update. Okey, untuk buat bateri aku memang puji. Memiliki bateri lebih 5,000 mAh dan optimization Nothing OS. Aku boleh cakap ini adalah model Nothing dengan prestasi bateri paling cemerlang sekali yang pernah Nothing bawa. So far untuk penggunaan yang berat, Nothing Phone 3 ni boleh memberikan aku SOP lebih 6 jam. And itu penggunaan yang berat tau. So untuk light usage, korang tak boleh phone ni memang mudah sampailah ke petang maupun malam. Dan satu lagi aku suka, bayangkan 65 watt fast charging, reverse charging, wireless charging, reverse wireless charging. So far kalau kita bandingkan dengan yang lain, tak semua ataupun tak banyak flagship yang menawarkan charging functionality yang sama macam yang dibawakan oleh Nothing Phone 3 ni. So untuk ini aku memang bagi thumbs up. Last but not least tu, korang kalau sana yang curious, Nothing Phone 3 ni dilengkapi dengan skrin AMOLED 6.67 inci, 120Hz refresh rate, ada HDR10+, 4500 nit peak brightness. Tapi ingat, bukan LTPO AMOLED tau. Namun dengan HDR10+, korang tak perlu risau in term of visual quality sebab memang top notch ketika korang tonton video dekat YouTube, movie dekat Netflix and even mobile gaming also. Tapi aku rasa satu benda tau ataupun flaw dekat skrin Nothing Phone 3 ni, yang mana dia ada PWM frekuensi yang agak rendah, 960Hz saja. Malahan itu sangat rendah tau untuk sebuah flagship tahun 2022. Bukan aku nak cakap yang mata korang tu akan heavily affected kalau korang guna phone ni lama-lama. Cuma aku agak terkilan sebab sebuah flagship sepatutnya ada pulse width modulation yang jauh lebih tinggi instead of 960Hz sahaja. Walaupun itu dah okey. So Nothing Phone 3 ni bukanlah sebuah flagship yang tak bagus. Tapi pada masa yang sama, dia juga bukanlah sebuah phone yang kita boleh anggap sebagai satu pilihan yang logik, bernas dan juga berbaloi dengan harga jualan dia. Aku tak nafikan phone ni memang unik. Ada software support yang lama, skrin cantik, UI clean, zero bug, kamera cantik, tapi sebenarnya agak mahal untuk harga atas 3K. Sebab nilai sebuah flagship dekat Nothing Phone 3 ni bagi pendapat aku tak cukup kuat sangat. Bila kita bandingkan dengan pesaing rapat dia macam Xiaomi 15, Vivo X200, X200e, iQOO 13 dan banyak lagi, aku boleh cakap yang Nothing Phone 3 ni kalah tanpa bertanding in term of spec wise dan juga price to value ratio. But still, kalau korang sukakan design dia, nak phone yang stand out dan tak kisah sangat akan spek yang terbaik dalam kelas flagship, silakan. Tapi kalau korang jenis mementingkan nilai dalam setiap ringgit yang dibelanjakan, sebab 3,000 bukan sikit kot, korang juga akan faham maksud di sebalik tajuk video ni.
If you hate flying as much as I do, we found some gear that might make it a little better. And while bad won't solve all your problems, at least
I didn't intend for this to be a pure performance gaming PC, but man, I honestly don't think I could have squeezed out more price to performance than this. I actually paid just under $750 for absolutely everything inside this build, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do the same. I'm going to make this video and build as easy to copy as possible, so it'll include the full parts list, why I chose them, and a full benchmarking run. If you need more than that, like the cable management guide, or exact BIOS settings, or links to alternative parts, that'll be linked down below in the cheat sheet so you have everything you need. If it's your first time building a gaming PC, then we condensed down the 3-hour live stream where I built this one into just the PC building steps so you can follow along with that. So without further ado, this is my $750 pure performance gaming PC build guide for mid-2025. Starting with the CPU, this one's honestly a tough debate for this price range in 2025. As much as I'd love to go with AM5 for every single build, if you want to squeeze out the most price to performance, we probably should still stick to AM4 for just a bit longer, at least in this price bracket. This is the Ryzen 5 5600X, which I bought used off Java actually for $95, and the reason I did this is because not only does this pair really nicely with our GPU, which we'll talk about later, but it also lets us save more money for that GPU. I had a bit over $300 to spend on my GPU budget, but if I would have went with AM5 with like a Ryzen 5 9600X for $190, plus the more expensive motherboard and DDR5 RAM, my GPU budget would have probably been cut in half. There are obviously some big benefits of going with AM5, such as the better architecture and way better future-proofing options, but for a pure performance style of build, I want to spend as much on the GPU as possible, as long as we're not bottlenecking it, of course, which the 5600X certainly is not because it's still a pretty fast 6-core CPU. I'll have a link to where I grabbed this on Java down in the description, along with every other part I'm talking about today. And real quickly, what's also linked down there is the sponsor of today's video, Corsair, and specifically their new Frame 5000D case. This is a premium upgraded and bigger version of their new Frame 4000D, now capable of holding a 420mm radiator, and it includes all the additional benefits such as the compatibility for reverse connection motherboards, swappable front panel designs, and a whole lot of solid options to get that Instagram-worthy cable management. These new Frame series cases are also all about modularity, which allows you to customize and configure the case exactly how you want. Modders and painters will absolutely love the flexibility. It's also super easy to build inside of, even for first-time PC builders, and I'll have a link to where you can check it out at the very top of the description. Thanks again to Corsair for the sponsorship, but now let's get back to our parts list. Next up is the motherboard, and this is the MSI Mag B550 Tomahawk, which I also grabbed used off eBay this time for only $80. This is honestly probably the best deal possible for an ATX-sized AM4 motherboard right now, because they've been ramping up in price, unfortunately. $80 by itself is already screaming good value, but especially because this Tomahawk model is actually pretty solid, and it's on the B550 chipset, which is exactly what we want. What we'll also want is a 32GB solid RAM kit, and this Clev Bolt X 3200MHz kit is great without breaking the bank. I've been using Clev RAM for a while now, and even though it's not rocking a signature brand name, if you've been in our community for a while, you'll know that this is an affordable brand that you can trust, and I honestly can't even think of a time where I've ever had an issue with that. Very good price to performance for only $44. I also stuck with Clev for the SSD, and this is their Crass C910 1TB NVMe Gen 4, which only costs $54 brand new on Amazon. This one I'm not going to rattle off long about because I've talked about it in probably the last 5 or 7 videos, maybe more. It's simply fantastic for the price. I love the removable heat shield, and it's consistently the cheapest available Gen 4 SSD that's pretty reliable. And to polish off this motherboard prep, we have to keep the 5600X nice and cool, especially since it is an X model, which will ramp up higher and give us faster clock speeds if and only if we keep it cool. And this is the ID Cooling SE214 XT Black. This one costs $19 brand new on Amazon, and it's been a staple for budget builds for a few years now. It's not as clean as my preferred A410 Frozen model, but to keep this build under $750, I had to go with this one. We'll see in the upcoming benchmarking section that it had no problems cooling the 5600X. Moving along here, next up we get to the power supply, and this is the MSI Mag A650BN, which I paid $65 for brand new off Amazon. We couldn't go with a lesser wattage for this GPU choice today, but still, for this kind of money, this is probably as good as it gets unless you find a really good deal. It's an 80+ bronze, non-modular, Tier C rated unit, and if you don't already know, you can check out the new and improved PSU tier list over on ZTTBuildHub.com totally for free. In general, Tier C units are fine for PCs under $1,000. In my opinion, anything above that or with an RTX 40 or 50 series GPU, you'll want a Tier B or Tier A. We're also not using cable extensions since that would go against that pure performance mindset, although they definitely would have made it look a bit cleaner, which I do recommend doing if you are on a super strict, arbitrary budget cap like I am. If you do want to buy that, then I personally go with the all-black 16-gauge Asia Horse or Okonos extensions, which will look super slick. Now next up, let's talk about the case, and I'm just gonna say it right now, I don't even know why, but for some reason, the brand name just sounds inappropriate. This is the Foifken M1 Black and Walnut case, which is ATX size and rocking 4 ARGB pre-installed fans. The Foifken, ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like something that's gonna demonetize this video, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's the Foifken. Now, other than the name providing me with a 3-hour live stream's worth of entertainment, the reason I picked this up is because A, I wanted to try something new, and B, on paper, this is rocking some serious value. It only costs $76 brand new on Amazon, and with that amount of RGB fans and this beautiful black and wood grain front panel, it looks pretty solid. It's also rocking a USB-C connector up at the front, and if you just disable the RGB colors like I did, it definitely gives off that sophisticated cigar smoking and whiskey sipping vibes. If you do want some color options, you definitely can. I just think that turning them off looks better with a system like this. The absolute only problem that I found with this case is that when people ask you what case it is, because nobody is gonna know what this is, you're gonna have to explain to them that it's the Foifken. Good luck. What they'll also ask about is the GPU, and not because it's not well known or anything, but people will be questioning why you can play every game in 1440p with a less than $750 bill. The reason that's possible is because of this XFX RX 6750 XT Quick 319, and I paid $315 for a used one, again over on Jawa. That's just slightly under what I consider the going rate is for a 6750 XT right now. If you're following this along at home, I'd search on both eBay and Jawa for this type of deal, and even if you pay like $330 or $340, that's still really solid price to performance. In that cheat sheet, which is linked down in the description, I'll throw some other recommendations like a 6700 XT, so check that out if you need it. But yeah, this 6750 XT is rocking 12 gigabytes of GDDR6 VRAM, and for comparison, it's right in line with about an RTX 3070, but of course with more than that dreaded 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Before we check out the actual results that we got in the gaming benchmarks, here's what the final parts list is looking like, and like I said in the intro, I just paid a touch under the $750 target mark. Granted, that price point does rely on some solid used Jawa and eBay deals on the CPU, motherboard, and GPU, but if you want this high performing of a 1440p system at this price range, that's the path that you'll want to go down. So now let's jump into some games, and we'll start with the new Splitgate 2, and in 1440p high settings without any sort of upscaling, we got a very solid 121 average FPS. Marvel Rivals also didn't need upscaling because in 1440p medium we got 75 FPS, and Fragpunk looked really good in 1440p high with 155 FPS. Now, we will want to experiment with some FSR action because the year's 2025 and it's almost a requirement to play these super demanding unoptimized titles. And the first one's Monster Hunter Wilds, and in 1440p high with FSR set to balance, we got a pretty smooth and honestly great looking 71 FPS. We also turned FSR on for Assassin's Creed Shadows in 1440p medium settings just so we could hit above 60 FPS. And here's Doom the Dark Ages set to 1440p high with FSR, and we got a very nice 69 FPS. Here are the rest of the games that we tested, and yeah, as you can see, every game is up there at playable frame rates in 1440p. And if you want to see a longer full gaming benchmarking run so you can see what these individual titles look like, the link for that video is down in the description and on the ZTT Extras channel. We've actually been releasing all sorts of content over there lately, such as the condensed down live streams, these full benchmarking videos, funny clips from the live streams, and even a gaming art piece that I just worked on. If you want to drop a sub over there as we're trying to push to hit 100,000 subscribers, that would be much appreciated. Now, the other thing we definitely want to take a look at is the cooling performance, specifically with the 5600X underneath this ID cooling CPU cooler, as well as the 6750 XT inside the Wolfgang. Here's Fortnite running at 1440p Pro settings above 200 FPS, and as you can see, both the 5600X and 6750 XT are at a very impressive low 60 degrees. Here's Rust, where I finally convinced our benchmarker Sam to do something more interesting than just smashing rocks every single time, and both the CPU and GPU are at or below 60 degrees. And in Black Ops 6, where the GPU load percentage is at 99% the entire time, it was still staying under 60. So yeah, this was a sneaky, absolute peak price to performance build, and as long as you're willing to buy used components, it's very easy to copy and build for yourself. Absolutely every resource you need will be linked down in the description, including that cheat sheet, and if you want to see how spending $100 more and only using new parts looks, then that video is on the screen right now.
Saya rasa kita kena cek statistik lah kan, tapi saya fikir agaknya ada penambahan bilangan orang-orang kahwin lewat kan. Patut tak kahwin lewat? Patut tak tumpu satu benda je? Saya rasa kehidupan kita ni sebenarnya adalah kehidupan yang pelbagai. Kita tak fokus kat satu benda je dalam hidup ni. Kita jadikan itu alasan je. Nantilah habis bayar kereta baru nak beli rumah, itu alasannya kan, sebab ada orang bayar kereta dengan bayar rumah serentak, right? Analogi dia lah. Satunya saya fikir mungkinlah orang semakin takut nak kahwin kot, jadi dia guna alasan tumpu pada kerja kan. Ataupun saya fikir yang lagi penting jodoh ni tak adalah, kalau dia ada jodoh sebenarnya dia kahwin je kan, tak kisahlah kerja tak kerja, siapa dia tak nak kahwin kan. Tapi mungkin jugalah media sosial ni kadang-kadang menakutkan kita tentang perkahwinan lah, nampak macam banyak side buruk tentang perkahwinan kan, menyebabkan orang takut nak masuk dalam dunia perkahwinan. Tapi dalam masa yang sama pun saya fikir ada banyak unsur-unsur luaran yang mula sebenarnya mengheret kita jauh daripada Islam, dengannya menunjukkan bahawa being single is much better than kahwin. Kahwin adalah sunnah. So bila you buat sunnah, bila you kahwin kerana Allah. Mana mungkin Allah biarkan you, mana mungkin Allah terlangkupkan hidup you, mana mungkin Allah terbalikkan hidup you kan. Adalah bantuan-bantuan daripada Allah. Career ni takkan sudahlah, Hari ni you masuk jadi kerani, nanti jadi supervisor, nanti jadi manager, nanti jadi whatever lah, bertambah-tambah lah, dia takkan stop kan. You kena letak satu had lah that you nak settle down kan, nak bertanggungjawab, nak bina keluarga, nak ramaikan lagi ummah, I think semua orang perlu ada tu lah. Shouldn't jadikan career sebagai barrier untuk tak kahwin lah. Kita boleh buat pelbagai benda dalam satu masa actually, Ada ramai kan orang kahwin, career dia makin bertambah baik kan. Bukanlah macam kajian menunjukkan 100% orang yang berkahwin career dia tak meningkat kan. There's no such thing kan. Jadi boleh je kahwin dan career meningkat. Perkahwinan ni sebenarnya kan bagi kita stability tau. Saya perempuan. Jadi saya dah tua lah, katalah saya version muda kan, dah kahwin. Kahwin ni bagi you stability sebab bila you kahwin, you jadi lebih confident untuk deal dengan orang-orang sekeliling you, because there's no romantic there's no romance anymore. You deal as, saya isteri orang, saya professional, saya bekerja kat sini, saya ada idea, you ada idea, kita bincang pasal idea. Kita dah tak payah melarut-larut lagi dan orang pun tahu barrier dia dekat kita. You nak murah isteri orang, come on, you won't do that unless you isteri orang pun malayan you memang cari isteri orang lah. Lepas tu sebagai suami, bila you bekerja kan dan berkahwin kan, you tahu that you bekerja ni is sunnah, because you cari nafkah untuk keluarga you kan. You lebih berazam untuk bekerja lebih baik, you lebih amanah, you bekerja dengan lebih kuat because you nak tunjuk contoh ke anak-anak you, Kahwin ni bagi kita stability, and then of course sexual ni kan benda yang memang fitrah manusia. Jadi your sexual pun dah terjaga because you ada orang yang halal, isteri ada suami, suami ada isteri. So perkahwinan ni actually stabilkan kita. Tapi macam saya kata, kita kena berlaku banyak lah pada perkahwinan. Pelaburan kena ada, kita kena tahu perkahwinan tu apa, kita kena bertanggungjawab. Perkahwinan ni bukan sekadar takut buat maksiat. Perkahwinan ni besar isunya. Once you nampak perkahwinan tu sebagai sesuatu yang menstabilkan you, I think many people want perkahwinan. Tapi of course lah, jangan letak syarat. Saya kahwin tak ada masalah. Semua perkahwinan ada masalah kan, tak kisah you kaunselor ke Perdana Menteri ke, you siapa ke, marriage memang akan ada masalah. Bagaimana you menangani masalah tu penting. Kalau ada peluang kahwin, orang yang nak kahwin tu pun orang yang bagus, orang yang betul, you dah teliti, kahwin je lah. Career tu kalau Allah izinkan berkembang. Kalau Allah tak izinkan berkembang, tak kahwin tu tak berkembang. Ramai orang bujang career tak berkembang kan. Macam tu lah. Buku sebenarnya bahagia bukan hanya dengan cinta. Normaliza Mahadi, saya dah penulis dia. Saya adalah license dan register counselor.
Saya baru saja tonton filem Superman dan saya boleh kata ini adalah filem Superman yang paling terbaik pernah saya tengok. Superman adalah filem pertama dalam DC Universe dan diarahkan oleh James Gunn, pengarah yang dah bagi kita one of the most successful trilogy yang pernah hadir dan berapa banyaklah. Saya bagi filem ni sebanyak 9/10 bintang. Almost perfect. Tak ada cacat cela. Adalah sedikit tapi itu kejap lagi. Baik, kenapa saya bagi dia hampir perfect? Sebab ini bukan hanyalah filem Superman, tapi dia adalah filem comic book Superman. Filem ni betul-betul ambil inspiration straight daripada All Star Superman, daripada Grant Morrison tu. Dan komik Superman tu is the best. Tak ada banyak kesalahan pun yang saya boleh kata dalam filem ni. Minor lah, bagi saya minor adalah mungkin CGI dia nampaklah ketara. Bukan semua, kadang-kadang. Tapi overall dia ditutup oleh how great this film is. Benda pertama, jalan cerita dia. Dorang dah tak lagi buat origin macam mana Krypton meletup, kapal tu jatuh dekat farm, diracekan oleh Pa and Ma Ken dan kemudian kita nampak Superman tu besar. No, tak ada dah. Diorang straight 3 tahun selepas Superman ni dah ada dekat dunia ni tau. Dan the conflict, kewujudan Superman tu adakah baik atau buruk untuk dunia ni. So itu adalah basically plot filem dia lah. Filem ni durasi dia 2 jam 15 minit. Jalan cerita dia sangat-sangat menarik. Plot dia tak mendata. Dia ada ups and downs, ada emotion, ada suka, ada gembira, ada sedih, ada bengang. Filem dia ceria, filem dia fun. Kali ni memang betul-betul it's a funny punya Superman, but in a good way. Dan
filem dia sangat-sangat colourful. Warna kostum dia mengelah setiap alien yang dorang kawal tu, dan kemudian